Hello, all you pony fans. I'm Duuz-Diz-Din coming at you with another My Little Pony Friendship is Magic episode review. This time it's season 9, episode 4, titled Sparkle 7. It's kind of like a play on Ocean's 11, I think it is, or maybe it's a little bit different. I think that's the reference we're going with. And once you get into the actual episode, you kind of start to see why I might have that idea. As Spike comes bursting in with a letter from Shining Armor in regards to something called the sibling crown or something like this crown in terms of sibling rivalry and all that good stuff. And naturally Sunset Shimmer comes in and asks is like, what is this, just to kind of get that exposition rolling. And we come to find out that this is a kind of competition that went on between Shining Armor and Twilight for years during their childhood and stuff. And it was a competition engaged by their parents in order to kind of get some healthy competitiveness going. Although I feel that could be detrimental given the age gap, and then Twilight was a lot smarter, so I guess they felt that would balance it out. But honestly, it's just like, I don't know. I don't know if I'd ever do that with actual children. Something about that doesn't seem quite right. And the sibling who won would always get bragging rights and stuff like that. And so, you know, it's gonna be one where Twilight hasn't gotten it for a good long time. So apparently this is kind of in it for all the marbles and all that good stuff. We even get a plot point that Spike had always wanted to try to win this, coveted sibling award basically, because he always saw himself as a member of the family, but that was never really hit home before. That's something that was always kind of dangling there. The fact that, Twilight hatched Spike, but is Twilight technically Spike's mother to a certain degree, or more like a sibling? Because when Twilight hatched Spike, she was fairly young, and I would assume that it was their parents who they kind of treated him almost like a pet, but then he actually showed the capacity to talk. So, lots of questions that were never truly really brought up beforehand. But the letter says that this is for all the marbles. Whoever holds this is for a new competition going on at Canterlot Castle. So they race off, leaving Starlight in charge of the school. So they make their way to the castle, and we come to find out that it's not just Shining Armor, it's also Celestia and Luna who are here. And, Shining Armor has kept the crown for a very long time just because so much has happened in their lives lately. So it's not gone between the two of them in a good long while. And with Shining Armor being in charge of, beefing up security for Canterlot Castle because of the recent invasion by Sombra, you know, Twilight's mission is to try to break into Canterlot Castle and retrieve the crown. And if she were to do so, whoever gets the crown will have the crown forever. This is the end of that sibling rivalry kind of thing. This is for all the marbles. Just kind of move on with their lives, I guess, for the most part. Just settle things now and forever. However, while Celestia is completely down with this and thinks it would be fun, Luna is not too into it. She felt that between her and Celestia, they could have easily come up with countermeasures in terms of, protecting the castle. So it's keeping in that train of thought of the sibling dissonance, but it feels very out of place to me here because man, Luna and Celestia just were not really seeing eye to eye on anything in this episode. It was almost kind of off-putting to a certain degree. But Shining Armor goes across, over all of the defenses he put into place, with him having gathered the shards of Queen Chrysalis's throne, and having Star Swirl the Bearded, create this magical, protection field around the castle to keep, anyone from like teleporting in or using magic in order to break in. They put in all these giant fans to keep anyone from flying nearby or close by or anything like that. And they even, bricked up all the underground passageways in order to keep people from going through them. And he even doubled up the guards, which is why we are seeing a good amount of both colts and fillies this time around, because it was always more male ponies, in place before, but now we're actually seeing a little bit more diversity this time around. So they've doubled up the guard in terms of the protection of the castle. And they've even gone as far as to make it so that only soldier ID badges can open up the doors, which I immediately could see it like being taken advantage of by any kind of enemy. It's just like, I don't know, I don't know. We even come to find out that there's a trap door right in front of the throne room in order to keep, anyone from getting even farther in. Not to mention there's this geese implemented alarm system where they'll start to honk out should anyone get close. And we have Twilight go through this kind of meme moment. If you've seen the meme, you'll immediately recognize it, where she's calculating everything that would need to be done in order to, break through Shining Armor's defenses. So she runs it through with her friends, who kind of question the fact that it's just like, isn't this just like for a, sibling rivalry and all that? This isn't really serious. Is it like, are you sure about this? But they ultimately roll along with it because it's just like, well, it seems like fun. We want to help you out. There's no harm to it. So Twilight runs over the plan with all of them, only for them to receive a letter from Shining Armor that he already knows everything that Twilight would try to do, down to the letter. However, Rarity proposes that if he already knows everything that Twilight would do, then their best bet is to do something that she wouldn't, by just kind of shifting plans over to each of them, which shocks all of them. It's just like, oh, okay, so Rarity's running the show, I guess. So they go over the various plans that they'll implement, going to a seedy bar in order to, kind of gain information on the underground tunnels. Pinkie Pie has this idea of going in from into outer space in order to, try to infiltrate somehow. And then we have this side story by Applejack about, this backstory as Apple Core, that she would come in and do this reunion or going away performance. And we get this backstory about this young Applejack who actually had a bit of a talent for music and did it for her family at first, but then she got pretty popular for a while and started to gain so much popularity that her family was no longer really able to attend her performances, and she gave up this whole, Dolly Parton-esque lifestyle, just without the big cha-chas, and gave it up in order just to make music for her family. And, Rainbow Dash asked the one question on everybody's mind, was that story real, or were you just making it up? I feel like that could be a story in and of itself, and it's just like, what? Wait, no, go back. Tell me more about that story. 'Cause that's just like this big secret that apparently she's been holding in and never got the chance to tell, and now it's just like, wait, no, you can't just gloss over something like that and just move on. And we even have this idea between Spike and Fluttershy as Fluttershy isn't really good with confined spaces, and she and Spike would sneak through the ventilation system. And it's decided that Twilight will have no part in this, because if she were, immediately Shining Armor would catch on to the plan. So Applejack comes out in her apple core costume and starts a bit of a performance right outside Canterlot Castle for all the guards, and they're actually fairly interested in it. For the most part, it's not the greatest song ever, but they're interested. Apparently the Wonderbolts did a flyover, and it was decided that with all the various fans, the only way to get in is directly above the throne room in the castle. And Twilight simply just standing by with Shining Armor having no idea, because he's just like, well, you're up to something, definitely. And it's just like, but he can't figure out what, because she's not involved. He can't figure out a plan that she has no idea of. However, we see that Pinky's balloon somehow got popped and just is out of control, so Twilight has to do her best in order to try to save her. This distracts a lot of the guards, and Applejack uses this moment to try to grab one of the guards, badges, so they can make their way inside, which, very good. But Pinkie Pie says that she doesn't really know where she dropped off Fluttershy and Spike. She has no idea where they landed before the balloon was mysteriously popped. Meanwhile, Rainbow Dash and Rarity find out that this nearby CD bar actually isn't closed on, I think it was Sundays they said, or something like that, or weekends. It's just closed, but this nearby cult is just like, oh yeah, this place is closed on these days, but if you're wondering about that underground passage, it's right over there. And we even, find out it's during a shift change with Zephyr Breeze being put in place by Luna. Apparently it's a new job for him. So Rarity is taken with this, but Rainbow Dash is mortified because she doesn't want to be involved with Zephyr Breeze. But Rarity sees an opportunity because he's so taken with Rainbow Dash. So Rainbow Dash ends up being dressed up in a look that looks very reminiscent of Meg from Hercules. And I love how tickled pink Rarity is over this. So, Rainbow Dash is sent in. Zephyr Breeze starts chatting her up because, he's always down with talking about himself. And Rarity does her best to remove all the bricks so they can make their way in, as Zephyr just continues to babble on about himself. Meanwhile, Spike and Fluttershy managed to make their way into the throne room and slowly glide their way to the throne to grab the crown. However, the geese do end up noticing, and they end up falling through the trap door after being startled by the geese. And Twilight starts to notice that things are going on a little too long, and she starts to wonder if the plan is starting to fall apart, which it is. And as Shining Armor is trying his best to calm down the geese, as since Fluttershy and Spike aren't there, he doesn't know what set them off. Meanwhile, Fluttershy is kind of freaking out for the most part, because ever since that moment in the castle of the two sisters, she's had this kind of slight fear of confined spaces. And, even Spike starts to kind of open up about his feelings towards this whole situation, as he always wanted to win the award because he always saw himself as a sibling of Twilight and Shining Armor, but he never really felt like he was included in that sibling status for the most part. And Fluttershy kind of comforts him, as a big sister to another little brother, in terms of, the fact that she wishes that her own brother was as earnest as Spike was. But they end up being rescued by Rainbow Dash and Rarity, who are continuing to search through the caverns because they've gotten lost and they've been trying to open up as many secret doors as possible, but they haven't found the right one. So they end up just trying to get out for the most part because they have no idea where they're going. And Twilight starts to kind of freak out, but she does even more so when she realizes that everyone else has completely failed. But after a bit of a pep talk from Spike saying that ultimately they should go with her plan in the end, they do set it off with Pinkie Pie setting off her balloon and, putting out this big huge party for all the guardsmen. And, they sneak in Rarity wearing a soldier uniform, and, thanks to the badge that Applejack got previously, she's able to make her way in. Meanwhile, Rainbow Dash, with her extreme speed, is able to make it through the fans with Fluttershy for the most part. We also see that Zephyr Breeze is relieved of duty because, ultimately if you're gonna abandon your post like that and fail so hard, you're gonna get fired, and they seal back up the entrance. However, Applejack, with the help of Maud Pie, of all things, Maud is able to pinpoint where the rocks nearby are weakest so they can make their way in. Rarity, meanwhile, does a guard change with one of the guards, and she lets in Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy, and then they make their way into the throne room, where Fluttershy proceeds to try to calm the geese, suggesting a feather rub. Meanwhile, Spike, Twilight, and Applejack make their way through the catacombs, and they make their way into the throne room, with Pinkie Pie getting in somehow. However, naturally, when they approach the throne, they find that Shining Armor, Celestia, and Luna are all there waiting, because ultimately it was Twilight's plan, and Shining Armor knew, how far they would ultimately get, where she starts to kind of gloat about it, just like, why would you go with the plan that I already knew was going to happen? And, Celestia starts to declare Shining Armor the winner, only for it to be revealed that somehow Spike obtained the crown when no one was looking. And when it's questioned how he could have possibly gotten to it without anyone noticing, it's revealed that he had a man on the inside, or should I say a mare on the inside. And I love just how insidious Luna looks. It is perfect. But, Spike, having noticed the dissonance between Celestia and Luna about bringing Shining Armor back in order to beef up security, he took advantage of this and proposed an alliance between him and Luna. So she was responsible for bringing in Zephyr Breeze, who would have broken down the guarding of the entrance to the underground chamber. Luna kept Celestia away from the throne room. Spike was the one who popped the balloon in order to cause the whole, infiltration plan to go awry. And he's the one who convinced Twilight to, go with her original plan in order to get everyone into the throne room together. And when no one was looking, Luna teleported the crown over to Spike, thus making Spike the victor for the sibling crown. And while Celestia is kind of pissed that Luna would, do such a thing, she does admit that they should try to make preparations for a double agent on the inside just in case. So it's still that awkward tension between Celestia and Luna that's very uncomfortable. But we end our episode with the, Spike being declared the winner of the sibling competition and the winner of the crown for all time, with them officially just being like, you are our little brother and we love you. We appreciate you, Spike. Something along those lines, which is very sweet. And again, it just goes to show that, Spike always was very nebulous about his involvement with the family, how it actually worked out, because he wasn't quite sure where his place was in terms of that dynamic. So he gets solid, concrete evidence that he is an appreciated member of this family. But hey, tell me your thoughts on this episode in the comment section below. What was your favorite moment? What was your least favorite moment? And how did you feel about the whole relationship between Spike, Twilight, and Shining Armor? Tell me your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you like this video, feel free to leave me a like. If you didn't, feel free to leave me a dislike. And tell me what I did wrong in the comment section below so I might better myself for future videos. And hey, how about hitting up a subscribe? Because I'll definitely continue to bring you more ponytastic episodes of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic up until the final episode of the final season. And if you want to find me on social media, feel free to Google Duuz-Diz-Din. I am everywhere, for better or for worse. And until the next video, remember, always show your siblings a little appreciation. Bye-bye.